There are moments in every actor's career that the public never sees. Behind the dazzling red carpets, the award shows, and the fan meet and greets, there are nights of doubt, frustration, and the temptation to walk away from it all. Shu Kai, one of China's brightest rising stars, was once on the edge of giving it all up. The cameras, the scripts, the glamour, it all nearly ended. And the twist? The reason he stayed wasn't fame, money, or promises from powerful producers. It was Tan Songyun. Yes, the actress whose warmth and quiet strength became the anchor that pulled Shu Kai back from the brink. Their story is not just about acting, it's about survival, trust, and a friendship, or something more, that carried the weight of unspoken emotions. Let's rewind to the time the industry almost lost Shu Kai and how Tan Songyun became the unshakable reason he chose to fight for his dream. Shu Kai was already admired for his roles, his striking visuals, and his versatility. Yet behind the smile, he was suffocating. Endless criticism, brutal schedules, and the cruel cycle of public opinion wore him down. There was a night, late in 2020, when he sat in his apartment, staring at the pile of unfinished scripts on his table. His phone buzzed non-stop with reminders from his manager, casting calls, and media requests. But he didn't answer. He sat there, numb, asking himself one question: is this worth it anymore? That night, Shu Kai drafted a resignation letter not to a company, but to himself. A personal vow to walk away. He wrote down the things he missed: peace, anonymity, nights without cameras flashing in his face, mornings without exhaustion painting shadows under his eyes. He thought of disappearing, buying a one-way ticket to somewhere no one knew his name. But fate has its own timing. Just as he was slipping into the darkness of that decision, his phone lit up. The caller ID made his chest tighten. Tan Songyun. She rarely called at that hour. And something inside him hesitated. He almost ignored it, almost silenced the phone, but at the very last second, he answered. Shu Kai. Her voice was light, almost hesitant. I don't know why, but I just felt like I should check on you tonight. He didn't say anything for a long time. Silence stretched between them, but Tan Songyun didn't hang up. She just stayed, breathing gently on the other side, waiting. Finally, Shu Kai exhaled. Songyun. I don't think I can do this anymore. What followed was not some dramatic pep talk or cliché encouragement. It was real. Tan Songyun didn't tell him to toughen up or think of the fans. Instead, she told him a story. Do you remember my first big rejection? She asked softly. I thought my career was over before it even started. I cried for days. I told myself I would never set foot on a set again. But then, someone told me something that changed everything. They said, if you leave now, you'll never know what masterpiece you were meant to be a part of. Her words landed on Shu Kai like a quiet storm. He closed his eyes, his hand tightening around the phone. Shu Kai, she continued, her tone steady, maybe the role that changes your life is still waiting for you. Maybe the moment you were born to act for hasn't come yet. Don't quit before you find it. The following week, Shu Kai was scheduled for a promotional shoot. He dreaded it, his exhaustion still heavy. But when he walked onto the set, Tan Songyun was there. She hadn't told him she'd be part of the project. It wasn't a coincidence, it was intentional. She'd pulled strings to be cast alongside him, not for the publicity, but to be near him when he was at his weakest. The first day of filming, Shu Kai could barely force a smile. Cameras flashed, directors barked instructions, and yet, every time he looked across the set, he saw her watching him not with judgment, but with quiet encouragement. When the pressure was too much, she'd give him that reassuring smile that said, "You're not alone." And then came the scene. A simple, ordinary one in the script, Shu Kai and Tan Songyun walking down a rainy street, sharing an umbrella. But something happened during filming. As the rain poured and the cameras rolled, Shu Kai felt something shift inside him. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't acting, he was just being. It was effortless. Real. After the director yelled cut, Shu Kai stayed under the umbrella with her, the rain dripping around them. He whispered, almost to himself, maybe I'll stay, just a little longer. Tan Songyun looked at him, water glistening on her eyelashes, and replied simply, good. Because the best is yet to come. The industry never knew how close they came to losing Shu Kai. Fans celebrated his rising career, unaware that behind the curtain, he had nearly vanished. And only a handful of people knew the truth, that it was Tan Songyun's unwavering belief that kept him in the spotlight. Their bond deepened after that. Whenever Shu Kai stumbled, Tan Songyun was the one who reminded him why he started. She became his sounding board, his confidant, the one person he could call at 3 a.m. without hesitation. Industry insiders began to notice their closeness. Whispers floated around sets, rumors painted them as more than friends. But Shu Kai never confirmed, and Tan Songyun never denied. They didn't need to. Because the truth was bigger than labels. It wasn't about romance alone, it was about survival. Shu Kai often said in interviews, acting isn't just a career, it's a fight with yourself. What he never admitted publicly was that in his darkest fight, he wasn't alone. Tan Songyun was the reason he still stood tall in front of cameras today. One of the most unforgettable behind-the-scenes stories happened during a late-night shoot in the mountains. The crew was tired, the air freezing, and Shu Kai was visibly drained. He sat on a rock, his head bowed, ready to give up again. The director grew impatient, yelling at him to get it together. Before Shu Kai could even react, Tan Songyun stepped in. "Calm but firm," she said, "he's not a machine. Give him a moment." The entire crew went silent. It wasn't common for actors to defend each other against directors. But she did. She sat beside Shu Kai, wrapped a blanket over his shoulders, and whispered something only he could hear. Witnesses said they saw Shu Kai smile faintly after that, stand up, and deliver a scene so powerful it left the crew in awe. No one ever learned what she whispered. But maybe that was the magic, their secret. Even today, Shu Kai is asked about his turning points, the defining moments that shaped his career. He usually gives polite, generic answers about growth, challenges, and dedication. But those who know him closely understand the truth. There was a night he almost left, and a friend who refused to let him. And maybe that's why, whenever he's on stage, accepting awards, or speaking to fans, he often glances toward the crowd as if searching for someone. More often than not, Tan Songyun is there, sometimes hidden in the back, sometimes quietly smiling near the stage. It's not about headlines. It's not about the rumors. It's about the fact that when the world was ready to let Shu Kai disappear, one person wasn't. And that made all the difference. So the next time you see Shu Kai deliver a breathtaking performance, remember this: it might never have existed. Those roles, those unforgettable moments on screen, were born out of resilience, but also out of a bond that defied silence. When Shu Kai almost quit acting, Tan Songyun was the reason he stayed. And in that truth lies one of the most powerful untold stories of the entertainment world. The night Shu Kai nearly walked away from acting wasn't just another moment of doubt. It was the night that could have rewritten his entire destiny. The world might have woken up to headlines about him leaving the industry, fans would have mourned, and directors would have scrambled to find another rising star. But what stopped him was not the thought of fame, fortune, or obligation. It was the voice of one person. Tan Songyun. Her timing that night was nothing short of fate. When Shu Kai sat in that dim apartment, resignation letter half written, she had no idea what was going on in his head. She only felt a pull, an urge to call him. And when she did, it was like pulling him back from the edge of a cliff. But what really happened on that call? Shu Kai's voice, low and broken, barely whispered, "I'm done, Songyun. I can't keep doing this." And Tan Songyun, calm but unwavering, said something that would echo in his heart for years. "Do you know why people love watching you act, Shu Kai? It's not because you're perfect. It's because you're real. And if you quit now, you're not just quitting on yourself, you're quitting on the people who need to feel that realness." There was a silence after that, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with the weight of her words, pressing against him until the thought of walking away suddenly felt like betraying more than just himself. In the days after that phone call, Shu Kai still carried his doubts. On set, he often zoned out, staring at the floor between takes, his energy drained. But Tan Songyun refused to let him disappear into that darkness. During a break one afternoon, she walked over with 2 cups of coffee, handed him one, and said, "You know, I asked the director for extra night scenes. Shu Kai frowned. Why would you do that? Night scenes are exhausting. She smiled knowingly. Because you don't like mornings. I wanted you to have one less thing to hate about this job. It was such a small gesture, almost unnoticeable to the outside world, but for Shu Kai, it hit deep. She wasn't just supporting him in words, she was adjusting her own workload, quietly shifting the weight off his shoulders without ever asking for credit. The turning point came one rainy evening. They were rehearsing a scene together in a quiet alley, just the two of them with a skeleton crew. The script was simple, two characters sharing a secret under an umbrella. But as the rain poured down, Shu Kai's hands trembled slightly. He couldn't focus, couldn't find his rhythm. The frustration rose, and he muttered, maybe I should just leave this scene to someone else. Without missing a beat, Tan Songyun reached out and took his hand. The rain dripped off the umbrella, their fingers cold but steady. You don't walk away in the middle of a scene, she whispered. And you don't walk away in the middle of your story. Shu Kai froze. The director yelled action, but at that moment, he wasn't acting. His eyes locked on hers, his walls crumbling, and for the first time in weeks, he felt alive in front of the camera. That one scene, raw and unpolished, later became the highlight of the drama. Fans raved about the chemistry and the electric emotion between them. But what the audience didn't know was that it wasn't just a performance. It was Shu Kai's breaking point, turned into a breakthrough. Behind the scenes, the bond between them only grew stronger. There were nights when Shu Kai would retreat to his car after filming, staring out at the city lights, ready to drown in his thoughts. And just when he thought he was alone, there would be a knock on his car window. It was always her. Tan Songyun, holding a paper bag with late-night snacks, sliding into the passenger seat as if it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't eat enough when you're stressed, she'd say, unpacking dumplings or noodles. And Shu Kai, who hadn't touched food all day, would laugh, sometimes the only laugh he managed in 24 hours. Those car conversations became their secret world. Away from the lights, away from the crew, away from the industry. Just two people, one fighting to hold on, the other refusing to let him fall. One particular night stood out. Shu Kai confessed the full truth. I had a plane ticket booked, he admitted quietly, his eyes fixed on the steering wheel. To Thailand. I was going to disappear for a while, maybe forever. Tan Songyun turned to him, her face unreadable for a moment. Then she said, do you know how many people would break if you did that? Your fans, your family, even your colleagues. But me, she paused, her voice lowering. I'd never forgive you for giving up on yourself. Her words stung, but they also lit a fire inside him. He realized that quitting wasn't just an escape, it was a scar he'd carry forever. And knowing that she would carry that disappointment too was unbearable. That was the night Shu Kai deleted his resignation letter. From then on, something shifted. Shu Kai still had his struggles, but he fought harder. He showed up on set with more determination. He pushed himself through sleepless nights, through criticism, through the weight of the industry. And each time he faltered, Tan Songyun was there, sometimes in person, sometimes just in a late-night text. Her words became his mantra, don't walk away in the middle of your story. Even the crew noticed the change. They'd whisper to each other about how Shu Kai seemed different whenever Songyun was nearby, more grounded, more at ease. Rumors spread quickly, but neither of them paid attention. They weren't focused on headlines, they were focused on survival. Years later, Shu Kai admitted in a rare interview, there was a moment when I almost quit acting. But someone reminded me that I hadn't found my greatest role yet. And that person saved me from giving up too soon. He didn't mention her name, but everyone who knew the story understood. And maybe that's why fans often notice that when Shu Kai is on stage, he sometimes scans the audience, searching. Because more often than not, she's there. Tan Songyun, watching silently, the same way she did that first night when she stopped him from throwing it all away. When Shu Kai almost quit acting, the industry almost lost one of its brightest stars. But because of Tan Songyun's unwavering presence, the world gained more than just an actor, it gained performances that touched millions, roles that defined a generation, and a story of resilience that continues to inspire. And somewhere between those late-night calls, rainy scenes, and quiet car rides, a truth emerged. Shu Kai stayed not because the world demanded it, but because one person believed he still had more to give. And she was right. Don't forget to like, share, comment your thoughts below, and of course, subscribe for more mind-blowing celebrity stories.